Hello, everybody, and welcome to Brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. And I'm your host, BMR. We've got a great show tonight. I'm be joined by my co-host, Krista Tweedy, who I'm going to bring up right now.
Hello.
Hello, Chris. How's it going?
Great.
If this is your first time here, please subscribe, give a thumbs up, and hit that alert bell. Please share us out. You can find us on Texas Front Porch. That'd be on YouTube. Also, Bigfoot Michigan Rob found on YouTube. We're also on Odyssey and iHeartRadio, Spreaker, and wherever podcasts are found. Find us on Facebook at Texas Front Porch. Find us on beyondbmr at gmail.com. Don't forget to subscribe to Texas Front Porch, Bigfoot Michigan Rob, and the Blondes and Booze podcast, a new member of our awesome platform. If you like what we have to say, share us out. The super chat is always open. Also, go to our community pages. Go to the About section and the description sections, and you can find everything that's going on during the week. And also, I'm going to make an announcement on our schedule. A lot of you know our schedule's changed a little bit. Mondays is Texas Front Porch, 7:30 in the East. Tuesdays, Van Buren Variety, 8 o'clock in the East. Beyond BMR comes on at 9 o'clock in the East. Then Jason McLean does a thing called Mysterious Libraries on Untold Radio AM. That's 10 o'clock in the East. Go check out Jason. You know what? You get more Jason McLean as well on Wednesdays. Serial Papers at 9 o'clock in the East. That same day, you guys, an hour later, Jason McLean Questions Everything's at 10 o'clock in the East. Follow up on Thursdays at 1 o'clock Central, 1 in the East. Brunch with Bigfoot Michigan Rob. Tonight, Blondes and Booze podcast. That's 9 o'clock in the East. Go check them out tonight. And then you know what? You get a double dose of the booze and the woo, the blondes, the booze and the woo with Krista Tweedy and all her two lovely co-hosts. That's Fridays. That's 9 o'clock in the East. And don't forget our friend Jessica Jones, Spaced Out Radio, Saturdays and Sundays, 10 o'clock in the East. You know, we got a great guest tonight. We have Santariga from the Bronxville Paranormal Society, Krista. And I'm really excited about this one.
Me too. This is going to be fun. Right up my alley.
Oh, I know it is. You know, one of the reasons why the Boos are a part of the group is to bring that paranormal element to us. That's one of the elements we were missing. And thank you for joining us, Krista. We do appreciate all your guys' hard work. Love you to death.
I'm excited to be with you guys.
Thank you so much. And thank you, everybody out there in chat. Love you. Thanks for your support. Subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob, Texas Front Porch, the Blondes and Booze and the Woos, Jason McLean, Bobby Van Buren, the whole allotment. Go to our YouTube pages and get the links for that. And you know what? I'm excited. I'm bringing up Santariga, adding him to the stream right now. El, man, welcome for the second time. You're not a rookie. You've been on here, I think last year, man. Welcome.
Yeah, I know. I came on once before. Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be here. Nice to meet you, Krista.
And meet you too.
Absolutely, Al. And, you know, I'm excited. And, you know, before we get started, what I like to do, and, you know, it's kind of lame because everyone does this, but you know what? For those that don't know about Al and you're in the Bronxville Paranormal Society, what's that all about, man? How they get founded and how'd you get into that?
Oh, well, it got founded in a pretty funny way. I worked in Bronxville, a little town in New York called Bronxville, and I was a mailman, and me and all of my mailman friends would go out and do investigations. So we were at an ancient stone chamber one time doing an investigation. We have these ancient stone chambers in the Northeast that nobody knows who built. And we were doing our investigation in one of them, and a group of people came up the hill. They were like, wow, are you guys a paranormal group? You know, and they were all excited because we had all our equipment out and everything. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, what's your name? And I said, the Bronxville Paranormal Society. Just came out. I don't know where it came from. It just came out and everybody loved it. And I said, okay, let's run with that, you know. And then I was also a member of a group called the New York State UFO Project. I mean, the New York State Roundtable. And we, I ended up picking my team as the guys from the post office dropped off. I started picking my team from the round table, which was a bunch of guys, and Brian Bowden, who's my right-hand man and my partner in crime. He was there and I picked him. And then, you know, we discussed who else we wanted on the team, who we could work with. And then we were off and running, you know.
You know, that's awesome. I'm glad how you put that together. And by the way, Al, I follow you. I watch your work. It's awesome. I know Brian Bowden, he's one of your partners. In fact, he's going to be on Beyond BMR next Tuesday at 9 in the East. So your buddy's going to be out joining me. I can't wait for that. But enough of that. We're getting on with this. Let me ask you a basic question. In your mind, and everybody's got differing opinions on the paranormal. When someone asks Al, hey, Al, let's say I'm a novice. I know nothing about the paranormal. And I say, Al, what is the paranormal? What does that mean to you?
Well, the definition of paranormal is anything that is unexplained. So, you know, anything could be paranormal if we don't know what it is. We consider paranormal. I don't actually consider it paranormal because I think in the grand scheme of the universe, it's all normal. It's unfamiliar to us, but you know, and it's all paranormal. And I don't care. I mean, I'm probably gonna get some hate for this, but whether you're a ufologist, a cryptozoologist, or a ghost hunter, it's all paranormal and it's all connected. And you know, and even Tex agrees with me on that.
Well,
I agree with you on that as well, 110%.
Yeah, you know, Chris agrees, Tex agrees, and quite frankly, BMR here, we agree. I think it all comes full circle. I think if you're talking Bigfoot, I think it's paranormal to a degree. Dogman to a degree. Ghosts, obviously, UFOs, aliens, yes. And to me, it's one of the reasons why we try to expand our shows. And it's why we have such a great team and great guests on, because we all are like-minded and we all, hey, listen, if you think that they're separate entities or separate subject matter, then you know what, you're probably watching the wrong show, because they all come together full circle. And I don't mind saying that because that's the opinions of everybody on our staff and our team. And that's why I appreciate having you on today, Al.
Well, before we get into this too deeply, can I give a couple of shout outs to some friends of mine?
You know what? I said you could backstage and you go for it, because we're all about promotion.
Thank you very much. First and foremost, I don't know if you guys know who April Brichette is. She's a psychic. She's been all over the Discovery Channel. And I went to a friend of mine's meetup. William Helm runs a meetup called Casper Meetup. And he's a ghost hunter as well. And he had April there. And I went to hang out with all my friends. We got a great paranormal unity community up here in Dutchess, New York, in upper state New York. So we hang out together, and I went there to see my friends, not really expecting to get a reading. April, we had a couple of deaths in the family recently, and April read me, and she was spot on, scary spot on, and I just want to thank her for that reading. Next, I'd like to thank Julia, who owns a house called the Miss Fanny Victorian Party House. And I was there recently with Bill Forte, who's the program director at KGRA, and Scott Allen and his partner, Julia. We did a paranormal investigation there, and it was an amazing, amazing night. Next, I'd like to thank the ladies from Full Moon Paranormal and the ladies from the ladies of the Ghost Hunts. We went to the Brickenhouse Museum here in Dutchess County, along with John Zaffis and the Haunted Collector, Eric Vitale, Exploring the Supernatural, and Tim Dalton, Ghost Prowler. And William Helms was there as well from Casper. And we had an amazing evening. I mean, oh my God, it was crazy. I'd like to give a shout out to my girl, Katie Turner. She's a psychic, again, from the Discovery Channel. She's from Canada. She's amazing, unbelievable, amazing. I had a demonic case come across my desk recently, which is above my pay grade. And, and I reached out. Katie told me what to do. I mean, she explained to me what was going on. And I discussed it with John Zaffis at the investigation I was with him. And John is related to Larry Edwards, who's a demonologist. And his wife, Deb Chamberlain Edwards, is as a psychic. So they're coming down. The three of them are coming down this Sunday, and we're going to this person's house, and she's going to get an exorcism, and they're going to cleanse the house for her. Otherwise, she's got to move because she's getting the hell beat out of her. So one last thing, I'd like to thank a good friend of mine, Barry Pirro. Barry got me a gig at the Putnam Valley Library recently, where I did a Bigfoot presentation that was just off the charts. The people were way too kind. You know what I mean? Embarrassed me, standing ovation, asked me for my autograph, which was totally insane. I laughed so hard when they said that. I was like, and then everybody was like, well, if you give that one an autograph, I want an autograph. And it was hysterical. But I'd like to thank Mike and Cole. Mike is the director of the library who brought me in, and he was really happy with the presentation. He thought it was very insightful. And Cole was like his tech guy who helped me with a lot of the technology stuff, because I'm brutal when it comes to technology. And that's it.
Yeah, well, thank you for that illustrious list, Al, and I'm all for everybody promoting people, because that's what we do around here. And I wouldn't say that, Al, if I did not think you were credible. I'd say, well, you know what? No, don't do it. I'd have told you that backstage. But Al Santariga, everybody, I've known him for maybe a year off and on. He's been on the show. We talk, we converse on Facebook, and I'm really excited to have you on. And Al, I got to say something. You already threw me off this interview today, because I knew what I wanted to start with. But it's great. It's awesome. That's how we roll here. Nothing is scripted. Everything is just impromptu. You mentioned that word exorcism, Al. Now, I don't know what your experience is, but I'm infatuated with that. I love the Art Bell show. Father Malachi.
Oh, yeah.
I think he was out of New York, and I would listen to that. Krista nodded her head. She probably knows what I'm talking about. Just
I studied demonology, so
yeah. So I'm sure you're well versed. I think Art Bell did like 12 episodes with him. We're not going to talk about him per se, but Al, when it comes to exorcism, have you been involved in these rituals?
Absolutely not. No, it's above my pay grade. I did have to assist in one early on in my career, because it was affecting one of my friend's children. And this was like a 5-year-old little girl, and he had a bunch of small children in the house. So I had to get involved with that one. What I did was I knew a woman who was a psychic spy, and she's from England, and she's retired she doesn't work for the English government anymore. She has her own castle, and she's very, very in-depth. And she said she would help me with this case. And we went there, and she actually removed the entity from the resident, and took the entity over to England with her and put it in like a well of souls, and has it in her castle, because she said otherwise it may just come back and attach to one of the other children that were in the house. That was my first and only experience with this stuff. Whenever somebody reaches out to me with something like this, I usually hand it off to people who are more experienced. It's something that I really don't play with. As a matter of fact, a friend of mine, you may know him, Kyle Connolly. Kyle reached out to me last night. He's got a case down in Florida where the person believes that there's a negative entity and it's demonic, it's ancient, and he wanted to know if I was getting involved. And I said, well, Brian just moved to Florida. I'll hand it off to Brian, and Brian can remote view it. And if it is what this guy is claiming it to be, malevolent and ancient, then we know people, whether they're demonologists, shamans, medicine men, who may be able to go in and cleanse this area, cleanse this property in this home. It's too far for me to go to Florida and deal with that, but I really don't like to deal with these things. The only reason I'm dealing with the one right now is because it's a family member.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no choice. I have to get involved when it comes to my relatives. So otherwise, I would have just handed it off to Larry and Deb, and I would have said, "Thank you very much. You guys take care of this." But it is a relative, so I have to be involved in this case. Yeah.
Just an FYI, I don't know if you know this or not, but once you do a demonic type case, you are marked. So in other words, what that means is that, nothing may attach to you today, but 20 years down the road, if you're in a low point in your life, they're looking, they're waiting, the demonic side is. So you're very smart in not getting involved unless it's something you truly want to commit your life to.
Well, I had this discussion with John Zaffis.
Mm-hmm.
I met John at a Para-Unity conference
John
in
is
New
awesome.
Jersey a couple of years ago, and I grabbed. We were at the same conference. I grabbed him by his ear and I said, "John, I got to ask you a question. These demonic entities. Obviously, you can't kill them. You can just banish them. Do you ever run across the same one more than once?" And he turned to me and he looked at me and he said, "Let me tell you a story." And I said, "I don't know if you know John, but John's really like soft-spoken guy, right?" He goes, "Let me tell you a story." And he says, "I did an exorcism in Boston one summer, and early in the summer, like in June." He goes, "That August, he was in New York doing a conference in the city." He said he was walking past Skid Row, and a homeless person got up and ran over to him and looked him dead in the eyes and says, "I know who you are, John Zaffis. Do you remember me?" And John said, "When I looked into this guy's eyes, I knew exactly what entity I was dealing with, because this was the same entity that I had banished up in Boston." And that just gave me chills when he told me that. I was like, "Oh, Jesus,
Yep.
But,
man, that is chilling, and it's kind of cool today, you guys, because typically, like on this show, it's a cryptid show, and of course, Krista is a paranormal investigator, Al, much like yourself. So for me now, it's almost like I'm interviewing two people, including my co-host. But I got to ask you guys, Al, Krista, you can chime in, of course. You mentioned about Skid Row. We talk about the homeless, and you see a lot of people that are homeless in alleys or in parks or wherever it may be, wherever you live. And I just thought of something as you were talking. Of course, we're talking the paranormal. I know you're not big on demonology, but do you think those people are more apt to get taken over or possessed or have something malevolent interfere with them because they know that they're I hate the disparage on the homeless, okay, but they're weak, they've got nowhere to go, they're looking for friends, they're just there. Do you are they the biggest target in the paranormal world?
Krista, you want to answer this one?
Well, okay. So when anybody is at a low point in their life, the demonic have to be invited in some way. And they look for people who are vulnerable, but they're not going to jump on someone who's just walking down the street, be like, "Hey, there's my target."
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
They have to be at a low point. So yes, drug use is a form, or just depression. People go to, this is my own personal beliefs on cemeteries. People go to cemeteries to grieve. And it's all sadness, that kind of thing there. So when people say, "Oh, there's, Miss Sally, the little friendly ghost there," I don't believe that. I don't believe that Sally is the friendly ghost at a cemetery. I believe it's more on the negative nature, only because, people have brought that negative energy in. They're sad, they're grieving type thing. So it all ties in, they have to be invited. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, Al, I'm sorry for asking that first question that went actually to my co-host, but
No. I mean, I could have answered it too, but
yeah.
I figured,
Well, okay. You
let's,
defer. You
I wanted
defer.
to hear what she had to say. To be
You
honest
defer.
with you.
Yeah. Well, I am too. Chris is a wealth of knowledge. All our guests and people in our group are wealth of knowledge. And let's get into this, Al, really quickly. What's last investigation you've been on? You mentioned a whole bunch of people earlier. You're working on a lot of projects. What do you got going on currently? Then we can maybe backtrack in some of your
Well,
past.
the one I got going currently is the demonic one that we were supposed to do it last Sunday, but John and Larry were sick, so we pushed it off to this Sunday. But before that, I had done the Brickenhoff Museum investigation with John and everybody, and we were doing the SB7 Spirit Box and whatchamacallit, Lorraine and Ed Warren were coming through.
Wow.
And it was amazing to hear their voices because John is related. That's Ed is John's uncle.
Yep.
And so they were coming through, which was pretty impressive because I had met the Warrens years and years ago, and they were doing a presentation at a school in Oxford, Connecticut, and I had gone up. My brother is a parapsychologist, and I went with him to see their in their presentation. And afterwards, we were all hanging out talking, and my brother was thinking about getting into demonology, and he was talking to Ed, and he said, "Hey, Ed, should I get into this? I just got my degree in parapsychology," and I was thinking, and Ed told him, he said, "Frank, if you get into this field," he says, "it will take years off your life." Mm-hmm. He said, "So if you go down this road, understand that." And my brother decided not to go into demonology, but so that case was the last one we worked. We had a lot of stuff coming through on the Spirit Box. We had a lot of stuff happening with the dowsing rods. Were going absolutely insane. I love the dowsing rods. I go old new school whenever I do anything. I go day, night whenever I do anything. I like to be there during the day and see what happens. I like to stay there at night, see what happens. If the ITC devices are not working, then the old school stuff works great, vice versa. And I wasn't going to talk about paranormal stuff. I had an all game plan. I was going to come in and talk about my Dogman experience.
Well,
it doesn't matter. We'll go where we're going.
Well, we've got time. Our fans, our audience, they love to hear some Dogman and Bigfoot. But since you do both, I want to give you you cover everything else, right? So I want everyone to know that you're multi-talented. You mentioned parapsychologist. Now, for those that don't know, and I don't frankly know, is that actually a field? Parapsychology?
Yeah, my brother was one of the first parapsychologists in the United States. He was working with Han Holzer's right-hand man and Han Holzer's psychic Ethel. Mm-hmm. And he had heard about this parapsychology class that had just started out in California. So he went out to California and got his certificate or degree or whatever it was in parapsychology. He was one of the first in the United States, and then he brought it back east. And so, of course, my brother is always a member of my team, no matter what, because I run everything by him, And it's not anything that I would want to get into. It feels like every time I'm trying to take a step back from the field, no matter what genre I'm talking about, I get pulled back in. It's like I've come to the conclusion that the universe is not done with me yet in this field, so I have to continue to do what I'm doing. But we cover, we started off as the Bronxville Paranormal Society, and we covered everything because everybody on the team had all kinds of experiences. But then as we were getting invited to symposiums, we were catching a lot of slack from the ufologists, from the cryptozoologists. Mm-hmm. So now we're the Bronxville Paranormal Society, we're the New York State Sasquatch Organization, we're the New York State Dogman Project, We're the New York State UFO Project. So whenever we get invited to a symposium, we can hang up a banner, which nobody's going to have any problems with. And we don't have to argue or have any grief with anybody. And everybody can get along. See, that's the problem with this paranormal field. Nobody gets along with anybody. If everybody shared all their information all the time, we would be so much closer to figuring this stuff out than we are now. We're never going to figure this out. And the people who don't believe that, and again, this is, I know a lot of people are going to kill me for this, but I don't care. People who don't believe it's all connected, they're way behind the curve. Way behind the curve.
I think that you've talked to two people right here that believe, and in fact, our whole team believes in that. And you know what? I'll even say this: the people out in chat and the people that listen later that follow us, I think most of them are believers in that. I mean, it's just too much is going on, Al and Krista. You talk about Bigfoot disappearing, right? The cloaking. You talk about Dogman giving you that grin through your window.
Mind speak,
Mind speak. I mean,
oh God, I hate that terminology. Mind speak. Mind speak and the woo drive me nuts.
Come on, the woo,
mental telepathy and paranormal experiences. Interdimensional. Please.
That's a good one. I got to write that down. Mental telepathy.
That's what it is. It is. When people say it's the woo or it's mind speak, oh my God, it makes me nuts.
I'm not even sure where that was coined. But it is kind of popular, and just like a lot of people don't like when you say Squatch.
Yes, I know. Dave Scott hates the.
I know. Well, yes, I know. It's either Sasquatch or Bigfoot, and hell, some of the First Nations people don't even like when you say Bigfoot. Some of them, not all.
No, I understand, but I mean, we all have our quinks, whatever.
We have our quirks. Yeah,
quirks. Yeah, thank you very much. I got stuck; it wouldn't come out.
Yeah, that's.
Well, it's just my pet peeve, because I think the way that terminology actually started was by people who didn't believe that like Bigfoot were nothing but flesh and blood animals and wanted to disgrace the other people who believe that, or discourage them, make them look stupid. And it's, so that's the reason why that terminology got started. They refused to use mental telepathy or different dimensions or whatever like that. So, and that's why it's my personal peeve. It just rubs me the wrong way, because when someone, not what you guys say, because we're all in the same boat. You know what I mean?
Right.
But it just sounds like you're being disrespectful to the researchers in the field that do believe that, and the one footprint in the middle of nowhere, and I know there are people out there that believe that the creature jumps on trees and backtracks and backtracks 300 yards to go around the mountain, when and it just leaves that one footprint there for you to. Well, I'm sorry, what? I'm not buying it.
I don't buy that theory, Al, only for this reason. Let's say it's flesh and blood, and I believe they have elements of everything. I think
when they're in this dimension, they're flesh and blood.
When they're in this dimension, but I'm going to tell you right now, I don't believe they walk backwards, because there's that dermal ridge. You might be able to line up your toes when you walk backwards, but there's no way you can match up all the ridges in the bottom of your foot like a handprint. There's no way in hell you can match that up. So when people say, they disappear in the tracks end because they backtrack. Well, if you go look back at these tracks, number one, they're going to be, they're going to get elongated, and the ridges aren't going to match up, which you can, and if you casted any of these, that proves it right there. Now, hey, listen, I'm not condemning anybody. If that's their belief, that's their belief. And I just have my opinion on it. And I don't think they backtrack.
Yeah, look, to each his own, and everybody can believe what they want to believe. But, and that's the perfect argument with the dermal ridges and everything. You may be able to line up the length of the foot and the toes, but you're not going to line up those ridges. I mean, come on, But you can't argue with some people. So, I don't argue with anybody. I agree to disagree, and I move on,
Absolutely. That's kind of what we do here.
Yep. And my thing is too, I wasn't there. So I try not to judge anybody or knock anybody's stories. I wasn't there when it happened, so who am I to say it did or didn't happen? That's kind of my views on it.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I mean, I did an interview last night, and I told an experience that happened to us that had every gamut of the paranormal that you could possibly experience in one night. And I said to the guy, I said, look, I know people think this is a bullshit story. I know they do. People have told me flat out, but it's called bullshit on it. And I'm like, that's fine. But if I was hallucinating, so were the two other guys that were with me. Because all three of us experienced it, and I don't think three people could have the same hallucination. I don't think it works that way.
Well, no, there's too many commonalities in all these stories, and you could be talking cryptid, you could be talking paranormal, you could be talking any of that stuff. And again, I believe, like you and Chris and everybody, it does come full circle. And what do you say? I mean, I passed the point of, like, what I believe here on this channel, myself personally, if somebody has a story, I don't care what it is. I don't care how far-fetched it sounds. I think it's healthy to have skepticism to a point where you want to debunk things. I get that, and that should always be in place. But who am I to tell someone they didn't see what they saw? Because I'll tell you what, most of the people have heard my story. My story went from a flesh and blood creature to a demon. And I always say that, and I stand by my story. I think most people believe that, but I don't care if they do or don't. I saw what I saw. So if you come on my show, or if you send me an email that you want me to read on my channel, I'll do it without I won't throw in a different narrative. I will not question it, because who are we, right? You just don't know what's going on in people's lives and what they experience.
And myself too, I have witnessed things that if I would tell the stories, people would be like, she's crazy, and I know for 100% fact that they are true. I witnessed
absolutely.
it. So I don't judge anybody, be it paranormal, cryptids, UFOs, anything,
Well, I'm from New York, and I judge everybody.
Well, that's New York. New York is like, come on. New York's New York, man. You're your own people. You are your own people.
Being an investigator, we deal with a lot of people who are mentally challenged, very depressed, heavily medicated, and stuff like that. And so you have to get a feeling for who's really experiencing what. I don't claim to be psychic by any stretch of the imagination. I get gut feelings. Over the last 40 years, 50 years of doing this, I've become more sensitive to different energies at different locations. And I know if I'm getting a metallic taste in my mouth, that I'm experiencing this, or if I'm getting a pressure in my forehead, I'm experiencing that. But I also know when I'm talking to people and I'm interviewing people, I try to trip people up, you know what I mean? And then, and if they trip up, or if I get a gut feeling that, it's just not sent, this doesn't sound right to me. If I'm not buying it, I'm not buying it. I'm not going to call the person a liar, or I'm not going to call BS on them. I'll just remove myself from that location and say, listen, I don't think I can do this case. It's not for me. Because look, we've all dealt, especially, you being a paranormal investigator, we've dealt with people that have just wanted attention, you know what I mean, or are mentally ill, challenged, or on heavy medication, and they just want to be known. They want to have company. They want someone to talk to, and I don't have that kind of time to invest in being, your psychologist. I'm not a psychologist, you know what I mean? So I get these a red flag goes up for me, then I bail right away. I'm just like, sorry, I think, and I've told people, I think you really need to sit down with a psychologist, someone to talk to, because I think they can help you more than I can help you, and we had one guy who was so far out there. He just had way too much time on his hands, and he lived out on Long Island. And I told him, I said, listen, get yourself a hobby. You live out on Long Island, get yourself a fishing pole, Go fishing every day.
Mhm.
Stop
Uh,
living in your house, in your
Right.
these four. He's like he put himself in prison in his own apartment. And I said, go outside, buy a camera, go do some photography. You got beautiful ocean views and lighthouses and all of this stuff out on Long Island. Take some pictures. You have to put some things into your life to keep you busy. Otherwise, you're going to constantly think that you're being abducted or you're dealing with
Yep.
demons, and it's just, I felt bad for the guy, and he really did need psychological help,
Mhm.
but the best advice I could give him was to get a hobby, to stay
yeah.
busy.
I gotta tell you, Al, you just mentioned the hobby of fishing. The last time when I went fishing was
That,
when I had my encounter,
yeah,
right?
well, maybe fishing
Yeah.
wasn't a good idea for you.
I tell you
um,
what, I haven't done it. It's not because of that. I'm pretty much over that, and I'm enriched because of what happened to me. And Al, I know you're prepared to talk some Dogman and talk some Bigfoot.
yeah, we'll go wherever it goes.
We'll
I'm
go where it
easy.
goes, but I'd
I'm
like to
easy.
ask you your opinion on. So I know, Al. So I love having you on. What's your thoughts? And I don't ask this question too often because I'm conflicted with it. Aliens. Now, before you even start forming a thought, you think and again, you're talking about you're not a demon guy. Do you think aliens are from another world, or do you think there really is just a manifestation from the devil that a lot of people do actually believe in?
Okay. I've spoken to a lot of world-renowned psychics. Okay, and people that are just like Amy Allen, for example. People like that.
Mhm.
That kind of level psychics. And from what they explained to me, and I believe everything they tell me. I know they're more in tune than I am. There are different kind of aliens. There are extraterrestrials from outer space, and then there are interdimensionals. And they're both alien to this world. So it depends on what you're dealing with, whether it's interdimensional or extraterrestrial. I don't think I've ever dealt with an interdimensional alien. I know the uh, experiences I've had, my abduction experiences and stuff like that, were all extraterrestrial, not interdimensional. So, but I know a lot of people, they talk about like these dogmen who are able to just pop into their house, and 1 minute the dogman is outside tapping on a window, and the next minute it's in their living room walking towards them. I don't really believe that's interdimensional dogman. I think that's a demon putting that image in your mind because it knows it's something that you're deathly afraid of, and it's using that to scare you. Just like aliens, extraterrestrials will put false memory in your mind to not try to scare you. You know what I mean? They'll show
Mhm.
themselves as like in my daughter's case, they showed themselves to my daughter as Dorothy from the Wizard of Oz. Or you know what I mean? So it works both ways. So I think if you have a dogman that's just popping in and out of your house, in and out of your room, it's probably something demonic.
Mhm.
If you have if you're dealing with a regular dogman that's interdimensional, and I believe they are interdimensional, and they can come in and out of our world, but I don't think they can just pop in and out of
Mhm.
people's homes like I Dream a Genie, just pop in and pop out. I think it's a little bit more complicated than
Yeah,
that when they go from our realm to their realm. Um, but it's just one man's opinion.
yeah, no, I respect the opinion, and really, frankly, the term alien really means anything that's really different. I mean, you throw out the term alien, if you look up the definition, it doesn't mean something from another planet. It's just something unknown or not known, right?
Mhm.
And kind of leaning towards maybe easing into the Dogman and Bigfoot discussion. I got to ask you, and there's a lot of people out there that they investigate Bigfoot, they look for Dogman, any cryptid. And so, since you kind of know a little bit about both, right? You do your paranormal side, you got your cryptid side that you do. Al, thanks for that. And okay, how does somebody know let's say you're going out looking for Bigfoot and you see something that's 12 foot tall with red eyes. How do you know it's actually a Bigfoot? Oh my God, I just saw a Bigfoot because it's like 12 foot tall with red eyes. I'm of the opinion that when you go into a forest, you go out investigating these entities, and I'll say entities as a broad term because it could be anything. They kind of
Mhm.
know what you're looking for, what your intention is.
Yeah.
So, are there a lot of paranormal activity going on in these forests that trick you into thinking that it's something that it's not, to play up your the narrative that you have in your mind to try to convince you or confuse you?
Well, absolutely. And I always tell everybody, whether they're going ghost hunting or going squatching, to make sure they protect themselves physically and spiritually when they go into the woods. There's a lot of things in the woods that can attach itself to you or harm you. And you got to remember, one time this whole planet was nothing but woods. So there are a lot of people who do dark stuff in the woods and conjure up dark things. So there are things out there that can hurt you. And if there's something dark or negative in the woods, then there could be something demonic there. And if you go into the woods thinking you're going to find the Bigfoot, and it knows what your intention is, and your intention plays a big part in the paranormal. I can't emphasize enough. It's all about it. Was one of the main things, as far as I'm concerned. I had an ascension happen to me a couple of years ago, and I was told that the secret to the universe is vibration, frequency, consciousness, and intent. And your intention plays a big part of that. So if you go into the woods thinking you're hunting Bigfoot and there's a dark entity there, sure, it could show itself to you as a Bigfoot or a Dogman, But the first thing you have to do is don't go in thinking you're going to find Bigfoot. Go in and look for a location that has a lot of Bigfoot sign, then hunker down and Bigfoot will find you. That's how you find Bigfoot. That's the best way
No,
to
no.
hunt, to go looking for a Sasquatch, is to find a location that has a lot of sign, hunker down, and they will find you. You're not going to find them. They'll find you.
Oh, I firmly believe they will find you.
Me too. I've heard too many people saying, they were just, all the encounters you hear, nobody was out looking for them. They were walking on the path or fishing or, doing something. They weren't out looking. Bigfoot did find them for sure.
Yeah, and there are certain techniques you can use that we use to bring them in, But my psychic always says to me, and she's from Arkansas, she's Native American, and she says to me, the minute you walk into that location, no matter which location I'm talking about, they know you're there. They know your intent, and they know, where you're going to be, or they know where you plan on going. Like I said, I don't go walking through the woods. I go to certain locations, and then I hunker down, and I have a couple of techniques I do to let them know I'm there. And then once they know I'm there, they come in and show themselves. But yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of dark stuff in the woods. I can't emphasize that enough. There are doorways, portals to different dimensions all over this planet. Ley lines that cross over, underground streams or quartz crystal veins, and that just amps up the energy, and it's just ringing out. And when that energy is doing that, it just opens up doorways to different dimensions, and anything could just come in and observe you. Some things want to observe you, some things want to eat you. It just depends on what you encounter that day.
Right.
Even sticking still a little bit more on the paranormal side, I got to ask you, because what you brought up something about out in the woods, all these dark things out in the woods. And I think a lot of us, I'm sure you've heard of it, Al, Chris, I'm sure you have. What do you think about in the middle of the forest, the woods, wherever you are, whatever state you're in? And I hear stories of these ladders in the middle of nowhere that are kind of around maybe a dilapidated home or shed or building, that they go up. There are stairs. They go up maybe 8, 9, 10 feet, and they're sitting there in the middle of nowhere. and let's say that you're out on a trail. Well, actually, these aren't off the trail. I mean, you're past the trail already. You're going off, but you come back, and you're in the same spot, and this ladder or this stairway is gone. What do you believe? What do you think that is? Do you believe in that, or have you heard of that?
I have heard of it. I've never experienced it. Um, I believe that has something to do with a time-space continuum. You know what I mean? You may have had dimensions that crossed each other, crossed over one another, and then by the time you got back around to it, they haven't. They've gone their separate ways, and so that ladder that was there when you first started the hike through the woods is not there when you come back down the trail 3 hours later. Something to that effect, I would think.
Mm-hmm. I would agree.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we got about 7 minutes. We have to take our first break. Krista, I've been
Yes.
blabbing along. I know you've got some questions for Al. Go fire off a couple, because if you don't stop me, I will continue to talk.
Let's go back on the paranormal realm.
Okay.
So, I've been doing this a long time as you have, and over the years, as you know, equipment has changed. What is your favorite piece of equipment that you use on paranormal?
My favorite piece of equipment, paranormal, depends on what I'm doing. If I'm investigating ghost hunting, which is another term I hate, but it's the best way to describe it, right?
Right.
I love the dowsing rods.
Mm-hmm.
I really do love the dowsing rods. If I'm squatching, I like a parabolic mic.
Yeah.
So those are two of my favorite pieces of equipment.
What do you think of the Estes method? I use that a lot. Doing that.
We used the Estes method the night I was at the Victorian party house, Miss Fanny's Victorian party house, and I was downstairs in the seance room,
Mm-hmm.
and the other folks that was there, Scott, Allen, Julia, and Bill, were on the third floor. And what they were doing was just asking questions in the ether. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because we didn't have a DVR system set up, we were using a walkie-talkie. So whatever I heard, I would speak into the walkie-talkie and they would hear it in real time at the other end. And I don't know what they're saying. I don't know. And I'm just saying stuff, whatever I'm hearing. When at one point, I felt like there was so much energy around me. I was in a vortex of energy, and the voices were just coming through, like just on top of one another. And I tapped out. I was like, okay, I'm out. It's getting too much for me. And when I went upstairs to talk to those guys, they were so giddy because apparently everything I was saying related to questions they were asking. Mm-hmm. And we've done the Estes method again. Brian and I did it in an investigation at an abandoned farmhouse. And Katie Turner, we used Katie as a psychic on that experience because my team psychic was going through back surgery. So we used Katie, and Katie said, this is what you're going to find, this, that, and the other thing. And when we did the Estes method, I was in the stalls where they had the carriage house, and Brian was like 3 or 4 rooms away, and he had said something to the effect like, who told us what we were going to experience here today, And clear as day, Katie Turner's name came through, Katie Turner.
Wow.
And amongst other things that were going on in the carriage house, there was a whole bunch of stuff going on that, Katie said we were going to experience. But we never, when psychics tell us this is what you're going to experience, we don't go in looking for that.
Right.
We go in, we do our own thing. And if that happens, more power to it. You know what I mean? But the funny thing is, everything they usually tell us is going to happens at some point during the investigation.
Yep. Yeah. I think we investigate a lot alike, because when I go to private homes and do private cases, I listen to what the people are telling me, but I need to witness this myself too, to what I'm seeing. And do you have like we have questionnaires that we fill out with people, and it sometimes it gets pretty personal. It even talks, about medications they might be on and
Absolutely, yeah.
religion and everything else, but I feel like it's important. And I tell people, we're not here to judge you. We're here to help you.
And I tell people, you got to be brutally honest with me, because if you're not, then I can't help you, and I'll just walk away right now. Absolutely. Yep. I agree 100%. You have to be brutally honest. If you really want my help, then you have to be brutally honest with me. Don't be embarrassed about anything, because like you said, I'm not here to judge you. Who am I to judge anybody? Believe me.
Yeah. Yep. I'm same way. Yep. Yeah, we do. We think a lot alike. That's cool.
I guess it's just, when you're in this for as long as we've been in it, it's just a natural progression along the way. It's a learning curve,
Yeah. You were talking about your case, where the person needed help. We did a private case here. I guess it was about a year and a half ago. We showed up to the house. We always do, a phone interview, and then we'll do kind of a walkthrough. Then we'll go back and do a full investigation.
You have to do preliminary.
That's how we do it.
Yeah.
Well, we walked in for the walkthrough, and they had guns laid out on their beds. I'm like, this was not something I was expecting. We didn't know these people. And, so I asked them to put their guns up, because why do you have your guns laying out on your bed? That was just, so there are all kinds out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I did a cleansing. Again, I had to use Katie for that cleansing, and turned out there was 2 open portals in the home. And we had to seal the portals, which I learned something on that investigation that I never knew before. The portals were in the mirrors, and I was told the way to find out if your mirror is a portal is to stick your finger up against it. And if there's space between your finger and the mirror, it's a portal. If there's no space, then it's just a regular mirror. Well, we cleansed that house. They had 2 portals. We cleansed that house. And the house was a humongous, and it was like a 2-day of fear. And when I was done, I was burnt out. I was totally drained. And then I got another one rolled in on me where a woman was having paranormal activity in her house, and I went there to investigate it. And I just got the vibe that something was going on with her husband, and she was like, I think he's having an affair. He's coming home with all these trinkets. And she thought that they were like negative and demonic trinkets, but they weren't. They were like protective kind of things. And turned out he had a love spell put on the husband. So I had to reach out to a hoodoo practitioner, a woman that I know of, Miss Ada, who's amazing. She helped me break that love spell, which is very hard to do when you have a spell or a curse put on you.
Yeah. Really quick, let's put a pin in that and continue in the next hour, because I'm coming up on a break. I got to get this through for our listeners on iHeart and Odyssey Radio. Got to take a 5-minute break, take care of our sponsors, and we will be back with Al Santariga from the Bronxville Paranormal Society on Brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. We'll be back in 5. Don't go nowhere. Get your popcorn, have a smoke, whatever you got to do.
Shut up.
Four minutes to go, folks. 4 minutes. Three minutes. We're almost there. Two-minute warning, guys. 2-minute warning. One minute. 1 minute.
Hey, welcome back to Brunch with Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, L. Santariga. Fantastic guest. And you know what's not so fantastic? When I went to hit the 5-minute break button, I hit the extra button. I'm about 20 feet away, and I hear Al or somebody talk. I'm like, that don't sound right. So I had to click on the 5-minute break. So I'm sorry for the 7-minute break. And live radio, live streaming, podcasting, whatever you want to call it.
It
Fantastic
happens.
show. It happens. But you know what? It's fun, and we're all about fun. And actually, Al, you were just finishing up on a great story, which is really fun. If you want to continue on from there. Before that, thank you, Nightmare, for the super chat. Thank you, Overbuilt, for the super chat. I certainly appreciate that. Love your support of the channel. Thank you ever so much. Anybody out there, if you don't have a super chat, that is okay. What we ask, you like, you share, you subscribe, and don't forget, hit all on your alert bells, because I've noticed with the algorithm on YouTube, for whatever reason, they like to play games. And a lot of people say, Rob, I didn't know your show was on text. I didn't know your show was on Brandy, Krista, whomever. Your show wasn't on. Well, it's because sometimes you got to go through. You have to do a monthly audit. Make sure the like bell is on, so you don't miss any of our fantastic shows and content. Al, thanks once again, man, for joining us. And if you wanted to continue on with the end of that last story, it was very good. I'm
Yeah.
sorry I had to cut you off.
No, absolutely.
We have responsibilities with our advertising.
Absolutely, I totally get it. So what I was discussing was case that came to me as a cleansing, and it turned out to be much more than a cleansing. Not only did we have to cleanse the apartment, the home, and the property, but the husband had a love spell put on him. And to get any kind of curse or spell taken off, you really have to go through a ritual of things for like a decent amount of time, like 7 days to get this off. So we got the love spell taken off the husband. And again, thanks to Miss Aida Severini for helping me there. This was above my pay grade. And then the woman he was fooling around with got mad because he wasn't in love with her anymore. And she put a curse on him. And then we had to go through a whole other batch of a different kind of cleansing and ritual to get the curse taken off him. So it was again, it was a very draining experience and eye-opening. It's something that I don't want to get involved in too often. But when you go to these homes to do these cleansings, you really never know what you're walking into until you're actually there. And like yourself, I always go and do a investigation and a preliminary investigation, see what's going on. Again, I don't claim to be psychic, but I am sensitive to energies, and I've gotten gut feelings my whole life. So I can walk around and say, okay, I don't like this corner over here, or, yeah, and that's just something, again, I'm very lucky enough to be in this field long enough to know a lot of people who can help me. And if they can't help me, they can help the client, you know what I mean? And I can wipe my hands of it.
Yep,
So,
absolutely. And that's us too. We don't try to, that night when we do a full investigation, I don't tell the client what kind of information we got. We all go home, we listen to our recordings, we check the evidence, then we go back, a week or so later, and we sit down with them and tell them what we got, and we give them a copy of everything that all information we get. So, and then we suggest what needs to be done from there. So it's kind of how we do ours.
Yeah.
And before we move forward too, I've got a comment and a question that I starred that from a couple people in chat, a couple friends of mine, and here's one, and this is either for either one of you really, because I don't know the answer. Pat Murphy asks, "Can you explain what the Estes method is?"
Go ahead, Krista.
Well, it's when somebody is wearing noise canceling headphones, but what they're hearing is like a white noise, and so somebody on the outside. And they also have a blindfold. And somebody on the outside is asking questions that could be relevant to the case or the location, whatever it may be. and then you're hearing these words come through the person sitting with the headphones. So you hear, if you hear, green elephant, you say green elephant, and it may or may not be pertaining to what the questions are asked. But in my own personal opinion, I don't know about yours, Al, but we've had that work quite a bit. It's a good tool.
It's all about sensory deprivation. That's what it's all about, blocking off the sight and the sound and just listening to what's coming through the white noise. And no, you'll be amazed when you ask questions in the ether that the answers you get back. The universe is amazing.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, I don't know if you've ever tried this or not, but it's a suggestion for you. So we were at the McIntyre Villa in Atchison, Kansas, and we had two gals in the attic. One was on one side, and this was a huge attic, and one was on the other. They were both doing the Estes, but one person was asking the question. And that was interesting because they were getting not the exact same answers, but relevant to the question, and I thought that was really interesting because neither one of them could hear the questions or hear each other, but they're still answering real similar. So something you might want to try in the future if you haven't.
Yeah, no, I've never tried that. You know what we have done though? We did an investigation place called the Beekman Arms up in Rhinebeck, New York. It's where Chelsea Clinton and all of these people stayed when she got married up there. And it's very historic. George Washington's been there. Everybody and their mother has stayed there. We were doing an investigation, and we had 3 dowsing rods going in the same room. And we're asking questions, and 2 were answering them, and 1 wasn't. And a little voice in the back of my head said, ask the same question, but not only in English, ask it in German, because this area was settled by the Dutch. So we happened to have a woman with us who spoke fluent German. And when we asked the questions both in English and German, we got the same responses on all 3 dowsing rods. And we had them set up like in a triangle. And it was just amazing to see all 3 of them working in unison. It was very crazy. Yeah.
I understand what you're saying there. Here just, I don't know, maybe 2-3 months ago, we had the Tennessee Wraith Chasers came to the Ray County Museum with us. And everybody was up in Indian Artifacts Room. Well, one of the ghosts that's known to be there, she was a deaf mute. And one of the attendees was deaf. So he was doing sign language, and the REM pod was answering to, what he was saying. I mean, it was just really cool. So when you said that with the different language, that's, you never know.
That's great. Absolutely.
We had no idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I got a statement from one of my friends, and actually a colleague of mine, Thin Lizzie Borden. we actually worked together. We were writers for Steve Stockton, by the way. If anyone did not know that, great channel. Go check out Steve. She asked, oh, by the way, her channel is Witch Please. Lizzie, if you're still there, drop your link. That's cool. Someone listening to a spirit box with headphones says, outlook what they hear. I don't understand that. If you guys can maybe comment on that, then we can we'll move on from there.
I didn't catch that. What was that?
I think it's basically, just, listening on the outside, maybe is what says on the outside, what they hear, maybe that was it.
Okay.
Well, Thin Lizzie, if you want to go ahead and re-quote that for these guys, that'd be fine. But we'll move on a little. We've been talking about the paranormal with El Santariga. I like saying it, Santariga. Bronxville Paranormal Society. And there's Steve Stockton right there. Thanks, Steve, for joining us. Hey, I like to move a little bit, Al. Again, it took an hour, and you were prepared to talk a little Dogman, a little Bigfoot. And you know what, Al? If I remember last time you were on, and I have to admit, I don't remember if it was about a bull and a Dogman or a Bigfoot.
No, it was a Bigfoot. It was a skunk ape down in South Florida. Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, you are the guest. Why don't you start rolling with some Dogman?
Okay, if you wanted to talk about a couple of my experiences,
Yes, please tell us
uh,
a story. Everyone likes stories
and
on this show.
it's not a story; it's an experience.
Yeah,
Don't
well,
call
you know what? No, listen.
don't call people's
Hey,
experiences
listen.
stories,
Hey,
because
listen.
stories is because it could be something that you made up.
Story could be made up, but Al,
Yeah.
everybody on the show knows that everyone that comes on, they talk about their
That's
experiences.
another one of my pet
Your
peeves.
experiences, man. You're an experiencer. You're an investigator.
Yeah.
This is not a show about make believe. This is about actual events. To make that perfectly clear, I did not mean to, slam you with that.
No,
It just
no,
came out that
it's
way.
just a pet peeve of mine. I mean, a lot of people,
Hey, you know what?
a lot of people call them stories, but they're not stories.
No,
They're
they're
experiences.
actual. Everyone sitting here, Al, Chris, BMR, we're all experiencers of the paranormal and in the
Absolutely.
cryptids. And a lot of the people listening later, a lot of people in the chat, same thing. So why don't we roll on with that?
Okay. Yeah. Well, my first Dogman
Oh,
experience.
really
Yeah.
quickly, Thin Lizzie made a typo, so she's cool with it. Now she understands.
Okay. Thank you, Ted Blizzy. But my first Dogman experience happened. I was going to work one morning. It was like 4:30 in the morning, and I was just going on the parkway, and there's a meadow off the side of the parkway where I get on, and usually there's herds of deer there grazing in the morning and just before dawn. And as I'm coming down, I see 4 sets of yellow eyes walking out from underneath the tree line. Now, the tree line has been cut up to about 7-8 feet high so the tractors can get under there to cut the grass, And I'm thinking, what am I seeing here? Now, I'm in my Jeep and I got tinted windows and it's 4:30 in the morning, so I don't even know if I'm awake yet. So I roll down the window and I'm looking at these things and I see these 4 sets of eyes walking towards me. And I'm thinking, wow, these Bigfoot, because they're pretty high up there, like 7 feet up, I'm thinking, wow, these must be Bigfoots coming out of the woods. So I'm sitting there on the parkway. There's no one coming down. Thank God I didn't get killed. And all of a sudden, these both sets of eyes notice me looking at them. And we lock eyes. And these things look at me and they drop down to all fours and they start running towards me. Okay. And I'm sitting there and just like in like spellbound. I feel like I'm in a trance and I'm just locked into it. But I do notice the one thing is that these heads are bobbing up and down. Now I've had a German Shepherd for 15 years. I know what he looks like when he runs and his head bobs. So I know that these are not Bigfoots running towards me. These are some more like dogish kind of creatures. So then I'm looking there, I'm standing there watching them, and they're getting closer and they're getting closer. And a little voice in my head says, you should probably go now, right? So I roll up the window and I punch the Jeep out, and as I go, I start to pull away. As I start to pull away, I tap my brake lights just to see if they're getting close to me, if they're still chasing me. And I can see that they both stopped at the same time and both like turned their heads to the north, like they caught a whiff of something, and they ran off to the north. So I called my partner Brian. We always bounce everything off each other. And I said, I don't know if I'm going nuts, if I'm going crazy or not, but this is what I think I saw. Does it sound plausible? And he says, you got to go back and you have to investigate the area. Now, this piece of grass, is right next to a middle school. And I thought I knew the area pretty well. My kids went to that middle school. They played soccer on their field. I said, no, there's really not much back there. It's just a school, town hall. And Brian says, no, you got to go back and you got to investigate. So I went back that Sunday and I measured the tree, and the tree was like 8 feet high. And I knew that the eye was a little bit below the top of the tree. And I'm walking through the woods and I come to a creek, and I'm in the creek and I see everybody fishing, and I said, what's going on? And the state, puts trout in the creek this time of year. I'm like, okay, so I go underneath the bridge. I come out on the other side of the bridge. I'm in this big condo development, and they got a big lake there. And I'm looking at the lake and I'm seeing geese and ducks and frogs and turtles. And I'm thinking, wow, there's a lot of food in this little area for, something to hunt. But so I keep walking, and then I come across a cornfield, a giant cornfield. And I was like, okay, cornfield, deer, Dogman. And I'm thinking, okay, this is definitely, there's plenty of game here for these creatures to hunt here, I get back on the parkway the next day, and there's a Jeep. There's a SUV on the grass that says like New York State Environmental Protection or something, right? And it's there. I don't see anybody in the Jeep. I go to work, it's there. I come home, it's there 2 or 3 days in a row. And I don't know what this Jeep is doing there. And I'm like, now this has raised a red flag. Why is this Jeep there and never leave? Then the Jeep leaves and another truck comes in, a pickup truck. Again, it was an environmental agency, but not the same particular one, like a different branch of the state agency. And that was more of a Blazer. No, that was more of a pickup. And that was there for a week. And I'm just like, I don't understand. There's a truck parked on this grass for a week straight, 2 different trucks, and I've never seen anybody near the trucks. Is it possible that every time I go by, someone's not around, So that was, to me, that raised a little red flag. Okay, so that was my very first experience, and which I thought was, pretty nuts, considering that these things put me in some kind of a trance. I mean, when we locked eyes, I was in a trance. And then we had an experience at an investigation one night where we were bluff charged. And originally we thought we were bluff charged by a Bigfoot. After we developed our film and everything, we realized it was a Dogman that had bluff charged us. Okay, it had a short, square snout. You could see its nose over a stone wall, its eyes shine, and 2 ears that looked like they were cropped. And to me, you look like a pit bull or something, or maybe even like a hyena kind of head. And we were blown away by it. And we didn't know it was a Dogman. But I was being drawn back to that location. Like 6 months later, I'm being drawn to this location. And I'm like, and I told Brian and I told Bill, and I said, listen, I'm going back. You guys don't have to come. I understand it was a crazy night. We could have probably all been killed, but I'm going back. And they're like, no, if you're going back, we're going with you. So we head back. And I'm being drawn. And I told these guys, don't distract me. Don't pull me off of my thing, because I want to go here, So they're like, okay, Al, we're going to go where you want to go. So we're getting closer. It's like 4 miles deep in the woods. But I'm not going to the ridge line that we were on the night we did the investigation. I'm going below it in the swamp. And the closer I get to this area, the more I feel like I'm overheating. And I feel like I'm getting hit with infrasounds. Now, I don't know if I'm getting hit with infrasound from a Sasquatch that's trying to stop me from going there because it's dangerous. Because that particular night, we had a Sasquatch whoop at us and throw stone at us the size of a bowling ball. And I think it wanted to get us out of harm's way because we didn't know where we were on top of a Dogman den. But anyway, I'm being affected by this, and Bill is like, we got to leave, we got to go. And I'm like, there's no way I'm leaving. I can see the swamp from where we're at. Brian gives me some fruit. I pour some water over my head. The feeling goes away, and I said, okay, let's go. And we head to the swamp, and this is 3 seasoned investigators, and we're walking around, looking around. We don't know what we're looking for, but, we're pretty good at seeing stuff. And we're there a solid half hour, and we don't see anything. And a little voice in my head says, jump on the stone. There was a giant stone over there. So I jump on the stone, and the voice says, move the cattails. And with my walking stick, I move these 12-foot cattails, and there's a trackway down the center of the swamp leading to a den. Brian jumps up on the stone. Bill jumps up on the stone, and we zoom in with the camera to the den. And Bill's like, there's something in the den. There's movement in the den. I can see stuff in the den. So he jumps off the stone and he thinks he's going to go into the swamp. And he starts to walk into the swamp and he sinks into the mud. And Brian and I have to pull him out. Okay. We pull him out. Now, after that happens, After we see the trackway, it's like a veil has been lifted from all three of our eyes. We're seeing arches and X and breaks and bends, scat, all kinds of stuff all around us. Something tells me to go up on the North Ridge and look down. I go up on the North Ridge, and there's a trackway coming out of the back of the den, going straight down the swamp. Then we come across this thing that looks like a homemade corral. Like something has gotten down trees and set it up as a corral. And I'm thinking, this has got to be like an ambush point. You know what I mean? They're herding the deer into this corral, and then they're ambushing them, you know? So we're there, and we see all this evidence, and we capture all this evidence. We go back to Bill's house. We put it on a 60-inch screen TV, and we're watching the video. And in the video, you see this giant canine head, looks like a German Shepherd or a wolf's head, looking to the south. Directly next to that is a creature that looks like a hyena, snarling at us like it's not happy. We know it's where its den is. Next to that, and this is crazy, but I swear to God, this is God's honest truth, is a creature that looks like the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Jeez.
I don't know if it's a cryptid. I don't know if it's an alien. And we're looking at this stuff and we're freaking out because we can't believe what we're seeing. Now, Bill's mom happens to come into the room we're in with coffee and cake, you know, because we've been in there for hours going over evidence. And she looks at the TV and she goes, "What are those two little monkeys doing in there?" And we go, "What monkeys?" And next to this creature that looks like the creature from the Black Lagoon, it's holding two little baby Sasquatch's hands. And we just freaked out. We're like, so everybody's like, we got to go back. Brian's like, I'm going to buy a drone. We're going to fly this drone in that den. I want to see what's in there, you know? And I was like, okay, you know, that was pretty crazy. I mean, I was being drawn there that day. And I think that's what I was being drawn there to see. Look, we were doing our investigation right above this den, and there may have been pups in that den. And this creature was not happy, and it bluff charged us to get us out of there. And we shouldn't probably have been there right from the start anyway, but who knew there was a den in the swamp, in the middle of the swamp. But anyway, I have that experience. I come home and I can't believe, and we got all these photographs. We got all this stuff on our sites. You can go and look at everything on the website, on the Bronxville page. So anyway, I go home. Couple of weeks later, maybe a month or so later, now it's the fall, right? This was in July, so October rolls around. I'm sleeping in my bed, and I never sleep with the window open. We're on the first floor. Mm-hmm. I'm from the city. When you grow up in the city, you don't leave first floor windows open because people come in, right? That particular night was a hot fall night. I had the window open. Something I never do, and I don't know why I did it that night. I had and my cat, I got a little 7-pound cat sleeping between me and my wife. And around 3:00 in the morning, I wake up and I feel like there's something on the other side of the wall in the backyard. And I don't know why I do this, but I tend to touch stuff to see what kind of feeling I get from it, you know? And I touched the wall, and I did not like the vibe I was getting from the other side of that wall. And the cat jumps up, runs upstairs to go to sleep upstairs with the kids. And I'm sitting there, and I said, okay, well, something's, as I look out the bedroom window, but I don't open the screen. I just look out the screen. I don't see anything. But I swear to God, I hear something sniffing, like getting my scent. Okay. So I was like, I closed the window, I locked the window, and I said, okay, let me go to the backyard. I got to put the sensors light, see what's on in the yard. So I grab my gun and I head towards the backyard. And before I could get to the kitchen to get there, the little voice in my head says, stop. You don't want to see what's out there. Go back to bed. Mm-hmm. And this is not like me. I'm the type of guy that runs towards stuff that's, if there's a somebody on my property, I'm going to go out and question them. But I stop. I turn around. I put the gun back. I go to sleep like nothing happened. Next day, I get up, I go to work. I come home and I say, you know what? We had just ran new lines from the well to the house. So there was a part of the yard that had no grass on it, just dirt. And it happened to run like right underneath our bedroom window. So I go out the next day and I look and I said, let me see if there's tracks back there, you know? And I go back there. There are no tracks, but there's 4 claw marks underneath my bedroom window. Like, yeah, I was here last night, you know?
Wow.
And I'm getting goosebumps just telling you guys this. And so I told, look ahead. Go ahead, Rob. You can say something?
No, I just said, yeah, I got goosebumps myself.
So
awesome story.
I tell Brian,
Experience.
I tell Bill, tell the guys on the team, and they're like, oh, dude, the thing tracked you. Because I'm the one guy who lives closest to the area we were investigating. Brian lives down in the Bronx in the city, and Bill lives on the other side of the Hudson River, you know? So that happens. And I said, okay, you know, something came to my house. I'm not happy about that, but something came to my house. A couple of days later, week later, again, I'm going out early in the morning to start the car. It's like November now. And I go out in the morning to start the car to warm it up. And I always carry a little pocket knife and some pepper spray with me because every now and then we get groups of wild dogs running through the neighborhood, tearing up the garbage. And I don't want to be a victim of a pack of wild dogs tearing me up. So I got this little pocket knife in my pocket and the pepper spray. I go start the car. And all the kids' cars are in the driveway this particular day. So it's 3 cars deep and my car is off to the right. And the sensor lights go on as I walk out there. I start up the car. And as I'm walking back, I see what looks like a shadow underneath my front deck. And I'm like, what's under my deck? You know, like, we don't have any homeless people in the town I live in. You know what I mean? I'm like, what the hell's under my deck? But you know, I'm going to find out what's under my deck. So I slap open the knife, I pull out the pepper spray, and I start walking towards this shadow. Now, I can't really see because the sensor lights are blinding me, okay, on the deck. As I'm getting closer, I'm seeing the largest canine head you ever seen in your life. I'm seeing what looks like a mane coming down something's chest. I'm about 1 car length away at this point. And the little voice in my head says, you should stop right now and go inside. I don't know if this is the creature talking to me or if that's just that little voice that's, I always hear in my head, my guardian angel or whatever. But I stop, which again is against every fiber of my being not to find out what's underneath my deck. I go inside. Now I'm thinking I should get the gun out and see what's under the deck. And then I get this feeling, let's call it a vibe, that you know what's under there. That's a Dogman under there. And you know what happens when you go to war with these creatures? It never ends well. You should get in your car and go to work and forget about it. Okay. Well, what I forgot to say was earlier that morning when I got up, I forgot this part. We had a cat that lived outside, and I'd open up the sliding glass door to feed her when I got up at 4:00 in the morning. She was coming around. Callie was her name. She was coming around to do her business in my wife's garden when she seen what was ever under that deck, and she jumped straight up in the air like a Halloween cat and ran up into the woods as fast as she could. So I was like, "What the hell?" It scared Callie, you know, because she's 7 pounds soaking wet, but she doesn't let anything come in the yard. She's a killer, you know. So I get in the car. I decide not to go to war with this. My son is home. My son-in-law's living here. Everybody's got guns. We have guns all over the house. Everybody knows how to use them. We all go to the range. We're family that shoots together. So I said, you know what? I'm just going to go to work. I'm not going to say nothing to anybody. I go to work. I get to work. I get there like an hour early so I can have my coffee, read my paper, unwind from the ride because it's a solid hour drive to work. And my wife calls me on the phone and she's screaming hysterical. And what's the matter? She goes, I opened up the sliding glass door to feed Callie, and the whole door came out of the frame and almost crushed me. If my son wasn't in the kitchen at that moment, he caught the door and put it back up. It would have landed on my wife. My wife's only 5 foot tall. She's a midget. So I said, well, what are you feeding Callie for? I fed Callie at 4:00 in the morning. Why are you feeding her again an hour later? She goes, why did the door come out of the sliding glass? I said, I don't know. So when I got home that night, I went and looked under the deck. I had just had a brand new retaining wall built, and on my retaining wall was urine. This creature marked my wall pissed all over my wall, and it smelled like pneumonia, and it was like an oil streak inside the urine. Okay.
Wow.
So now I'm thinking, this son of a bitch marked my house. So I went around the back because I'm thinking, well, when I came out to go to work, I came out with my tactical flashlight to see what was under the deck. And there was nothing under there when I hit it with the tactical flashlight. This creature must have went around the back and tried to pry the sliding glass door open. But I, being from the city, we have like pre-locks on everything, right? And he couldn't get the door to come off the track. But once the door was unlocked, it fell right off the track. So this creature came around, and the vibe I got was, it was saying, okay, you know where I live, I know where you live, and this is how easy it is for me to get in, you know? And I was like, and I just like put my hands up in the air, and I said out to the ether, I said, okay, you don't have to come to my house anymore because I'm not coming to yours. And we just left it at that. And I never went back to that den ever again because I didn't want him coming back to my house, you know?
Right.
And that was very scary to think that this creature could have came in. I mean, you know, look, let's face it. If it wants to come through a sliding glass door, it can come through 2 glasses of pain. It could have killed everybody in half. I could have came off work and found everybody mauled, you know? And then I would have really felt guilty that I didn't go to war with it when I had the opportunity to go to war with it. But, you know, better judgment. My better judgment said, no, you've heard enough stories and talked to enough people, experiences to know it's a bad thing to go to war with these things. And so I didn't. And we've lived in peace ever since.
Wow.
That's a lot to unpack.
Yeah.
Yeah, well...
That's fascinating. Excuse me. Krista, you got a thought on that? Because
I do have a couple questions.
Yes, go for it.
You were talking about when you got zapped.
Yes.
I have 2 questions on that. One is, did you have any missing time? And my second question was, did it make you physically sick?
Not that day. I didn't have anything. We did have an experience like the night we were bluff charged. We did lose 2 hours, but that's a whole different story. I was sick as a dog. Yes, I was. My body temperature felt like I was like overheating, and I was nauseous, and I felt weak, and I couldn't breathe, and I just felt like, as much as something was pulling me there, something was trying to stop me from going. Like, I don't know if that was the Sasquatch trying to protect me or if that was the Dogman trying to stop me. I don't know. I can't honestly answer that. But yeah, I was definitely sick. I was, like I said, Bill was freaking out. He was like, you know, because the trail we go in, it starts off as a mining road. Then it turns into an Appalachian trail. Then it turns into a goat trail. And it's very treacherous, you know. And Bill's like, dude, if you go down, we can't carry you out of here. We're way too far in, you know. And there's no way getting a helicopter in here with all these trees. Right. And I was like, if you think I'm going to turn around now when I can see where I want to go from here, I goes, not in God's green earth am I ever going to stop. I'm being pulled this way for months. I'm not going to stop now, you know?
Right. Yeah. I was just curious about that because I've had others. I've got a friend who was zapped here, I don't know, a month ago at the LBL. And he got sick and the guy he was with was sick for days. So I was kind of curious about that.
Yeah, that was the first time I have ever been zapped. I was on a Bigfoot expedition with a friend of mine who was an Alphabet Agency guy, and he was doing some stuff he shouldn't have been doing. And I told him not to go where he went, and he got zapped. And he was actually knocked. Like, if I wasn't standing behind him to catch him, he got hit so hard that he went down. He just lost balance, and he went flying back. And he would have hit his head on a tree or a rock. But I just happened to be sitting, and I caught him, and I told him, and we had to sit there for a solid, like, an hour before he could regain himself. Yeah. And I told him, I said, dude, you have to go to the doctors tomorrow. If you're pissing blood or anything like that, you have to go to the emergency, because this stuff can really damage your internal organs, and you can't play with this, you know? And he was like, "What happened?" And I explained to him what happened. I said, "You went somewhere you weren't supposed to go, and they just knocked you back a little bit, you know?"
Right. Yeah, that's crazy story. It's pretty interesting, really. And the fact that they followed you too. I've heard that too. I've had other people talk about that they followed you home, and obviously, in my opinion, that was absolutely to give you a clear message.
Oh, that message was loud and clear. Believe me,
Yeah.
I got the message. Yeah, believe me.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't go looking for Bigfoot, a Dogman anymore. Unfortunately, they seem to be in all the same locations as the Bigfoots. So, I'll run across them or sign of them, but it's not like I'm out there looking for them, because I'm not. I don't want anything. We take a lot of Dogman reports in New York State, and we'll go and maybe investigate a location after the fact, just to see if we could find any kind of sign or tracks or anything. But I don't go looking for them to actually, try to figure out what they are now.
Yep.
Well, let me ask you, there's something I want to talk about, but you know what? Okay, this whole encounter goes down. I've had several encounters that people have told me about. Elle, what do you think? I mean, this is not just a flesh and blood creature.
No, absolutely not.
No.
This creature definitely is interdimensional. It comes from a different realm. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it comes here for one reason and one reason only, because of the food source that's here. It's a lot of easy prey for these. And I don't believe that all of these creatures are blood killing animals. Because if that was the case, there would be so many dead hikers in the woods. They would find body parts all over the country. I think they're hunting at these locations because there's plenty of game, a lot of prey. And they don't like it when they come across humans, because maybe they feel like we're competitors to them for the food source. And they try to intimidate us to make us leave and stuff like that, and it usually works, And I don't believe that when people say they smiled at me, they're actually smiling. I believe they're showing you their teeth for a reason, to let you know that, I could bite your head off with one snap if I want to. Go ahead.
We must have been reading each other's minds, because I know that. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I know you follow my channel and you watch all my encounter videos that I do put out on Bigfoot Michigan Rob channel. And I put out a story. And again, it's an encounter story that was from a subscriber that it emailed in. And I'm not going to get into it. It's out there if you guys want to go watch it. But I'm going to paraphrase it. And Al, you had made a comment some time ago. It was about a guy in Wisconsin chased down by a supposed dog man, and it was running. He was running with his car 30, 40 miles an hour, and he was on all fours. And then he got up close to the window, and he looked in, and the person said it smiled and showed his teeth. Now, first of all, something with a snout, and they described the snout to be 5-6 inches long, whatever. First of all, that's impossible to curl that into a smile. And I'm with you. That's not a smile. That's like, I can get you at any time. And then supposedly this thing got on 2 feet and took his claw and put a mark right down the side of his car. Now again, I believe everybody sends in their encounter stories. You got to take it with a grain of salt, but I will post it and I won't ridicule, condemn, because I believe. But that story, and you had made mention, I don't know about that, Rob, left in a comment or whatever, which I appreciate all comments.
Yeah, because there was a lot of red flags in that story for me. That's why I made that comment. Yeah,
but the thing that struck me just now, though, regardless of that story, they don't smile at you, because I've heard that encounter. If I have not heard something similar to that 50 times, then I haven't heard it at all, that these people make mention of it smiled at them. And again, it's impossible to smile, but there is a scowl, and that to me is sinister. That's not like, hi, I'm playing with you. It's like, you know what? I can kill you anytime I want to.
Yeah, they're showing you their teeth for a reason, to let you know They're the apex predator, and you're a peon if you get in their
Right.
way. But I don't, like I said, I don't believe that they're all, killers.
I don't either.
If that was the case, there would be dead hunters all over the woods. And, I know all of my friends hunt. I mean, they bow hunt, they black powder, they regular rifle, they shotgun. They're always in the woods, and they all walk out alive,
Yeah, listen, I will backtrack, and I will say this. I don't think that Dogman, Bigfoot are killers or anything. In fact, just like the human race, there's good human beings. There's good and bad human beings, evil human beings. There's good cryptids. Bigfoot is good. Bigfoot can be bad. Dogman can be good. They can be bad. Some people give these stories about Dogman being a protector of the woods. I don't buy the fact that they're protecting Bigfoot because, quite frankly, Bigfoot can hold his own. But you have First Nations people that say that, hey, you know what? They, a lot of them talk all about Sasquatch, but a lot, though, if you read a lot of their stories or what they have said down the years, is that Dogman was a protector of the territory. So I believe there's good and evil in every cryptid. Much like ghosts and paranormal activity, you've got the good side, you got the bad side, just like us. And, and so I'm not saying that these things are bad, but you just got to be aware of what you're researching. You've got to be aware of what's going on in the wilderness, the woods, because we just don't know, do we?
No, absolutely not. And the Native Americans that dealt with the Dogmen, that say they're the protectors of the woods. Well, maybe there weren't any Sasquatches in that area at that time, and these creatures were protecting the woods because they were protecting their hunting range, and so they were doing that. And like I said, my psychic is a Native American, and she always calls the Sasquatches the guardians of the woods. That's what she calls them. And she says they're there to protect the woods. And look, I have a couple of clans that I deal with and I use the word tolerate me when I go there. They tolerate me. They let me do my experiments and have my epiphanies and all this stuff. But I could go there one time when when one of them is in a bad mood, and it could be the end of me. You know what I mean? All the years I've been going there, I've never had a hostile encounter ever with any of the Sasquatches I'm dealing. Doesn't mean I could show up one day on a bad day when one of them has got a toothache or something, and he's not happy camper. It's like when people say, "Oh, I want to leave him food. I want to do this. I want to do that." I always say, first of all, don't leave meat because they'll follow you home if you leave meat. Feed them what they can find naturally in their environment, fruits and vegetables and stuff like that. Don't bring sugars, sweets out there because I don't think that they're used to that stuff, and I don't know how well their body can handle all that processed sugar and stuff. So you may give one a toothache, and then I come in to do my experiment, and because you've been giving him Twinkies for 20 years, he's got a toothache and he takes it out on me. I don't give my Sasquatches any food, even fruits and vegetables. I give them trinkets and toys and stuff like that, whistles, bells, marbles, things that they can blow, make noise, play with, but never food. I'm not a guy who believes in feeding them.
I tend to agree with that because I've had several people I've spoke with. I'm not a big on habituation at all, really. I mean, I know people that, as you made mention of, toys, marbles, squeaky toys.
Yes.
But I've had a handful of people contact me that they have a habituation site and that suspected Bigfoot in their area, and they'd been putting out apples, peanut butter. And here's the thing, though, Al, and these, whatever it is, I'm not saying it's alleged Bigfoot or what have you, that it's eating the food, and they do this for months on end. Now all of a sudden, the homeowners, they kind of get bored with it. They haven't seen anything, and they're kind of like, oh well. Then you know what, Al? They stop doing it. A month or two later, now is when they have problems. All of a sudden, there's rocks being thrown at their house. All of a sudden, there's like knocking there's noises on their roofs. There's pounding on the side of their walls or the outer side of the house. Their chickens are coming up missing. An animal comes up missing. Well, guess what? I think that once you stop something, much like a child, you give a child candy every day. Then as a parent, you stop. Well, guess what? You're having a cranky kid
No,
because you stopped doing that. Now imagine a 1,200-foot-pound creature in the wilderness, in the woods, that you're feeding, then you stop. Don't you think they're going to be a tad pissed off at you?
that's why I always say give them whatever they can find in nature. And if, like different seasons, they eat different things. Give them whatever is in season that particular time. This way, when you leave, they can still find those blueberries in the woods naturally. They don't have to follow you home to get blueberries. They can still find, we have a lot of orchards, apple orchards up here. They could still find the wild apple trees, or the wild grapes and stuff like that. I always try to say, if you're going to feed them food that is in abundance at that time of the year. In the fall, it's a lot of nuts. Give them nuts, stuff like that. But don't feed them stuff like one guy said, "Can I give them a potato?" And I was like, "Well, I guess you can. It's a vegetable. You can give them a potato. I don't know if they know what a potato is, but I know if you're feeding Bigfoots in New York, you're not giving them you're not giving them bananas or oranges or lemons or limes or grapefruits, because it's not natural up here. You're giving them apples, pears, berries, peaches, stuff like that. And vice versa, if you go down south, you're not giving those creatures down south something that they don't find naturally. So I always try to say, look, I told this guy with the potato, I said, if you want to really make a good impression, leave the potato at home. Bring them a bag of apples and maybe some tobacco.
Yeah.
And leave that as an offering and just walk away. And then maybe, you could start something. But, as far as potatoes and stuff that's not natural to them, they don't. And I noticed the ones up here, too, they don't like tomatoes. I think the tomatoes are too acidy, so they won't eat the tomatoes.
Well, yeah. I even have problems sometimes with tomato juice. But other than that, I love spicy food. I can eat Italian. My stomach is like, made of iron, I guess. But you know what, Al, man, this has been such a great show. I hate to leave you. We've got we're coming on in 2 hours. What I'd like, if you'd like, you got for our audience, our people in chat. Thank you everybody for coming in. Can you close out today with one more story?
One more experience. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Al. I say the word story. I know, and I know that you're an experiencer. I get it, and I'm sorry. I do apologize.
What do you? I don't know if I have any more.
How long was how long was the bull? The killing of the bull, was that? Do you remember that?
That was in 1974.
Yeah, you got time for that one?
Oh, you want me to tell that one again?
I probably heard it. If you don't want to, you don't.
No, I mean it's pretty long. I don't know if we have the time.
Let's go 5 minutes. One last thing, off the top of Al Santariga's head, what would you like to say to the audience?
Thank you for coming, and appreciate anybody coming in from different groups and everything. And I promoted the hell out of it, and I hope promoting it, people will come in and see what's going on and follow you guys. But I mean, if you want me to tell you another Bigfoot story,
let's fill up about 4 minutes.
Okay, we were going into the woods one time because my neighbor is a hunter, and he was talking to a couple of his friends, and I was eavesdropping, and they were telling them how they went into the woods to this location, coon hunting one night, and they had 2 red bone hounds, big dogs, and they're really afraid of much, and they got to a certain location, and the dogs wouldn't go any further. So then they couldn't get the dogs to go any further. They started getting rocks thrown at them. So one of the hunters said, "Listen, if you thought it was high school kids partying, and they said, listen, if you don't stop throwing rocks at you, we're going to sick the dogs on you." Well, the rocks kept coming. So they told the dog to go get them. The dogs got about 5 feet, turned around, ran back past both of these guys, and ran to the truck and hid under the truck. And so one of these guys put a round into the tree, right? Boom, thinking he was shooting, trying to scare these high school kids off. When a 7-foot Sasquatch steps out and screams at him. At that point, they both leave and they say, okay, we're done coon hunting here. I hear this story and I was like, oh, I got to go in. You know, I've been to this location a million times. I used to walk my dog there all the time. I used to take my son fishing there. Never knew any of this stuff. So I research it and I find out there's a lot of Bigfoot experiences off the Appalachian Trail, people camping off the trail, people camping at this lake. So I go in, and as we start hiking, and it's about a mile hiking off the mining road, I find a buck, 175-pound buck, up in a tree, 60 feet up a tree in the fork of a tree. And this tree looks like a fireman's pole. There are no branches on this tree all the way up to this fork. So whatever carried it up there shimmied up the tree with this thing on its shoulder and then threw it over. So we took pictures of it. We were really like freaking out about it. And then we got deeper into the woods. We got about 4 miles into the woods and we started finding these little stone cairns up on cliffs. Like you had to be a mountain goat to get up there to put these. And I just got like the weirdest feeling. I thought it was like a Blair Witch moment, you know? And I was like, what the hell is creating these little figurines, stone figurines? So we researched it and we found out that the Bigfoots do make these figurines. So we decided to go back. And we went back one night. We were hiking in and there's a whole bunch of us, about 7, 8 of us. Most of the guys were from the city. And you let me know when I run out of time.
Go ahead. Just take your time.
And we get up. We're hiking up this path that's going up over a ridge. And I got the feeling that there's something on the ridge across from me looking at me. I just got this vibe that we're being watched. So I stop. We stop at a location. I see a break over the trail that we're on. Nobody notices but me. So I said, let's stop here. Stop there. And one of the guys who's in the back says, look, I think we're being followed, man. I feel like there's something following us. And then the other guy who was like a point guy comes over and says, give me your night vision goggles. I think there's something up on that ridge watching us. So he's looking up on the ridge with the night vision goggles. And I hit it with my flashlight. I had a big flashlight at the time. It's like a 1,000,000 candle watt flashlight or something. And we hit it. And I'm looking for eye shine. We don't see anything. And then a smell that was so putrid comes up out of the hollow that's below us. I mean, it was a disgusting smell. And everybody's freaking out. And so now I'm thinking, okay, we got one behind us, one below us, and one above us, triangulating. They're tracking us, you know? So let's get off this ridge because it's a very narrow ridge, one person at a time. We get off the ridge, we get down into the swamp, and we hear the coyotes going off. Big pack of coyotes. God, there had to be with 20 of them in there. And they're just running around, you know, howling. And we're walking across the swamp. And then all of a sudden, the Sasquatch attacked the coyotes. And you hear blood-curdling screams from the coyotes. You hear coyotes being bashed against trees. I had a coyote the size of a German Shepherd run into me. It was looking behind it as it was running, and it ran into me and knocked me down. And I went face first into a tree and dislocated my shoulder. And I had to lean up against a tree and knock my shoulder back in. And as my friends all took off, it all took off in different directions. They were gone. And I'm trying to get everybody, you know, round everybody up, say, don't run. You can't outrun these things, stand your ground. Everybody's gone. We come across a couple camping off the Appalachian Trail. They open up the tent. They're like, what's going on? I said, nothing, just close the tent. Coyotes are just going crazy. They won't bother you inside the tent. Just, you know, don't worry about it. We all rendezvous back at the car. And we get back to the car and we're talking about it. And they're like, are you okay? And I'm like, I don't know. My shoulder's pretty bad. I go to pull the car door closed and my shoulder came out again. So now I have to bang it against the back of the seat to knock it back in place.
Wow.
I get home, tell my wife, get up. We got to go to the emergency room. I dislocated my shoulder. And, but that night, I don't think the Sasquatches were hunting the coyotes originally. I think they were just out hunting, and we got in between them, which pissed them off, and they took it out on the coyotes and attacked the coyotes. And that was a crazy night, because to hear these coyotes screaming, necks being broke, bodies being bashed against trees, and this pack of coyote, which was 20 strong, they just took off in every different direction, just like my friends, you know. And it was crazy, because we're down in the swamp, in this hollow, and the noise, the screams of the coyotes, the screams of the Sasquatch are just echoing around us, and it sounded like it was coming in from all angles. It was just crazy.
Wow. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah,
it was a pretty crazy night.
That's crazy.
Put it this way. All my friends, that was the guys I worked with in Bronxville. They never came out with me again after that.
I wonder why.
They're like, we're done. You know?
Right.
You know, that is incredible. And you know what, Krista? What an incredible guest, Elle.
Yeah,
Santariga, Bronxville Paranormal Society. Elle, I know you're a humble guy. Where can people find you?
Yeah, you could find me on Facebook, at any of our groups, the New York State UFO Project, the New York State Dogman Project, the Bronxville Paranormal Society, or the New York State Sasquatch Organization. Or you could just reach out to me privately on Messenger, and I'll answer anybody's question that they have. If they want to talk to me, I'm very easy to approach.
And I will say this: I talk to Elle, every once in a while. He's a great guy. Again, every time I've got something I ask him, he always answers. He's straightforward, straight shooter. That's what I love about you, Elle. And thank you ever so much. I'll have you back on again another 6 months. And Krista, what's going on with you? You got something going on tonight and Friday, don't you?
I do. We have the Blondes and the Booze at 8 p.m. Central, and tonight we're talking about incubus and succubus.
Ooh, wow.
With a friend of ours, Dave Glidden, and then tomorrow night we have Michael Christopher and Aaron Eck. They're going to do live viewer readings with Blondes and Booze and the Woo.
Wow.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I will make sure to tune into that one. Don't forget, everybody, subscribe to Blondes and Booze. Is it Blondes and Booze Podcast? Is that your mother channel?
Our YouTube is Blondes and Booze Paranormal Podcast.
Yeah, Blondes and Booze Paranormal Podcast. Of course, mine's Bigfoot, Michigan Rob, and we got Texas Front Porch. And you know what? For everybody listening, for Elle, for Krista, we are going to sign off. You have a great weekend. Come on, check out the Blondes and Booze Thursday and Friday. Go check out Al. Subscribe to our channels across the board. Love each and every single one of you. I appreciate it. Until next time, Bigfoot, Michigan Rob. He's out.
See ya.